Watch this before converting to Islam. That is the title, the exact title of the video that I will be watching today. And I believe it is to be as a warning to those who are intending or have the intention to become a Muslim. So without further ado, let's go and watch what this guy have to say.
What to know before converting to Islam.
Okay, before we go on, I know this is beside the point whatsoever, but that is a cool intro. I wish I have some way to make a cool intro like that. But anyway,
I'm your friendly neighborhood ex-Muslim, bringing you the deal of what you should know before you turn to Allah. Number one, it's a one-way street. That's right. The punishment for leaving Islam, according to classical Islamic scholars, is death. That's a bummer. But if you're living in the West, you're lucky, because this probably won't apply to you. If you're in a Muslim country that apostasy is punishable, you should think super carefully. Basically, don't do it. Nobody's going to tell you this when you're learning about Islam. None of these Dawah guys or Islamic scholars will alert you of the danger. But you can be in danger if you take this step without thinking. Number two.
okay, so that's number one about the apostasy law. Uh, Actually, okay, among Muslim, there's a long discussion about that, right? How do you understand apostasy law? And if you see just the text itself, uh, the context of someone who is murtad, right? You tend to understand it as someone who leave the religion, right? However, I think there's a long discussion about this in terms of how to understand the context. I'm not talking about how to justify to others. I'm talking about how Muslims should understand this. And I know most Muslim do not think about this deep enough, because for most of us, we never think that it will ever apply to us, and hopefully it will never. But I'm talking about, how is this justice? How do you understand Islam as something that upholds justice, and how is this justice, right? How can someone, just because they choose to believe in other thing, they are punishable by death, right? So to make things short, because this is not the video for it, but if you have studied the seerah, you understand that the Muslim community and the religion itself back then, it represents certain things that meaning that when you leave Islam, you tend to be going into the enemy of Islam, right? And that's when we talk about why is it punishable by death, etc. It's basically treason, etc., etc. Right? So that discussion, I leave it there for this video. But I think many Muslims never even think of trying to understand why it is as meaning as grave as a sin, not just a sin, because most law in Islam is not just a sin, because there are many sin that is not punishable by a criminal law in this world, right? Because you will have to pay for your sin. But when you see any law in Islam that is punishing something severely, it tend to have meaning that the crime is so grave towards the society normally, right? If you understand why is it the zina, right, etc., right? So why is it so grave, right? So I've discussed this in other video. So yeah, so just to point that out, that I do understand that if you ask any Muslim that have only learned the text, right? For many Muslims learn about and the rulings in Islam just by the text. What is this? It is that, right? We never know the reasoning, etc. Hence, why many Muslims are not equipped to deal with this kind of question, unfortunately. Going on.
2. You want to fulfill a hole in your life. American materialism has got you down, and you're missing something in your life. You're craving a desire to belong, for a deeper meaning, to be part of something bigger than yourself, for all of it to make sense somehow. Well, sorry to say, but the reality is that Islam will just cover up this hole with more stuff. a whole lot of praying and fasting and repeating names of Allah over and over, and promising you imaginary gifts like rivers of milk and honey, paradise with virgin girls, and. Number 3.
So if I understand it correctly, he is saying that the reward is imaginary, meaning he comes from a position where I think atheist, I'm assuming, that because here's what I think. Anyone who's already considering to go into Islam is already believing in the Creator, in the afterlife, in the heaven and hell, etc. Right? So that's not, because unless someone actually just going into the religion just because I have emptiness in my soul or something, I just want to fill it with something more meaningful, hence I choose Islam. Perhaps that is a possibility, what he just mentioned. But if you really already understand and believe in the core of the faith, right, meaning that a creator have created everything that you can see, and this life is a test, etc., 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 then that issue is not an issue, in my opinion, because you already have deal and dwell with that to find the answer first before you just jump in, right? So I think that's a non-issue for many who really learn about Islam before going into Islam, I think.
You find some commonality with your old religion. If you're a Christian, stats show that you are the most likely candidate to convert to Islam. Most of us who leave Islam become atheist, but most who become Muslim come from, you guessed it, Christianity. So now you found Islam. Probably Sunni Islam, but maybe another version like Shia Islam or Ahmadiyya, with its reform appeal of no jihad, or its appearance of being more rational by not propagating miracles or something like that. I actually went through this myself. Nearly 2 decades ago, I converted from Ismailism to Sunni Islam. After reading the Quran and studying Muhammad's life, I felt that this form of the religion was more close to the truth than Ismailism, so I followed it. I deep dived into it, dedicating my life into it. I made many sacrifices, and it shaped every decision I made, including where I worked, number of kids I had, who I married, and so on. This is why I speak about it today, because I don't want you to spend 15 years of your life for a false religion. Why did I convert to Islam? For one, I wasn't as critical minded back then. I was young and looking for something and somewhere to belong to, and the Muslim Sunni community was just that. Number 4.
Wait. What is the point of this whole thing? Because he begin with, if you are Christian, you tend to be the candidate to become Muslim. And then he share his personal experience from Ahmadiyya or something to Sunni Islam. And then it's just a false religion. Meaning, did I miss something? I don't see. Is there anything that to say that? I don't know. I don't see any point in that, except that, yeah, statistically it is true. If you are Christian, you tend to be the candidate to become a Muslim, and statistically speaking, many Christian, meaning most of the convert or revert to Islam, tend to come from Christianity, because they already believe in the core belief, which is there's a creator, this life is a test, I think, etc., etc. It's just that there's something wrong with the belief system there, and they found the truth here, right? So I'm not sure what's the point there, meaning what's to consider there.
You think Allah spoke to Muhammad and he was the best example, such a humble, selfless man. The reality is that Allah didn't speak to Muhammad. There just isn't any good evidence for this. And he got massive personal benefits from being the chosen one. He was treated like a demigod. His followers obeyed his every command and order, drank the leftover water from his religious washing, his ablutions, not to mention his sweat and saliva. It's even reported one of them drank his blood. Whatever woman he wanted, he got, even if she was married. He even managed to marry his adopted son's ex-wife, despite this being completely taboo in the culture. He just waltzed into her house and announced, "God has married me to you." He ordered his companions that they must love him more than anyone else, to mention peace and blessings be upon you after saying his name, to obey without question. Sami'na wa ata'na, hear and obey. Number 5.
Okay, so I can understand those who haven't studied any seerah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam may that kind of argument tend to be like, wow, that is solid. But if you have studied the seerah, what he just said, it doesn't make sense, in the sense that because all those examples is being brought forth to paint a picture that Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gained everything from what he did. But if you study the seerah, especially at the first 13 years, come on, seriously, can you even conclude as such? Why would a sane man that is not a prophet, that is not on a mission from Almighty God, face such terrible period of time? That's a long period of time for something that he just created, for hopefully after 13 years he will gain something. Because all of the example mentioned tend to be, meaning you can see it, the prophet gain things from the followers in normally what we conclude as we gain something worldly, right? Is 13 years later, right? Why would a sane human being go through all those things when it is not confirmed? Because if everything is fabricated, that is not even confirmed, right? Day after day after day, years after years after years, and then his uncle died, his wife died, terrible thing. So for those who have studied seerah, you can, I mean, you can put in context whatever he just said easily, to brush off that kind of accusation. But anyway,
If you want spiritual benefits, if you want to deal with the pain of life and find a deep meaning, try meditation and mindfulness. Just being is all we have to do. This is a secret that many do not know. Meditation can change your life without all of the rituals and dogma of Islam or any other religion. Meditation prepares you to deal with the hardships in life. It allows you to deal with the pain that permeates our existence. Do yourself a favor. Study both the arguments for and against Islam before converting to it. You may end up saving yourself from a lifetime of bad decisions, sacrificing for a God that doesn't exist to reap rewards in a heaven that will never come. How am I doing now? Let me be the first to tell you, I don't miss Islam. I don't miss all the rituals, all the rules, all the complications it adds to your life. Life is so much simpler now. I read a book and I don't have to think, done. This thinking isn't allowed in Islam.
totally false, right? If you read the Quran, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ, don't you think about the creation, etc.? Just saying that thinking is not allowed in Islam is fundamentally false. If you read the Quran, you understand the Quran, and yeah, the other things that he mentioned before about meditation, etc. Right? So yes, true. If someone just want to, feel something and hope Islam can fulfill that, there's an easier alternative options, right? Like meditation. I perfectly understand that. But if you, like he mentioned, I do agree, you have to study the argument for and against, and he proposed the against points, right? So if you understand really the points, the argument for Islam, that tend to be the reason why you are considering to revert to Islam in the first place, right? Hence, you already gone through all of this.
We couldn't have evolved because Adam and Eve was made from clay. Or done. This teaching completely contradicts what Muhammad taught, so I can't do it. This job? Well, I can't take this job. It's in the banking sector. Or it's an insurance company. Or they sell alcohol. Or it's an entertainment industry. Or if you're in Canada, weed. When I left Islam, I was finally able to buy a house without guilt. When I'm out and I'm hungry, I don't have to worry about whether there's a halal restaurant and I have to eat fish or vegetarian food again. There's so many sacrifices you have to make when you truly follow this religion. You wake up every day so early for Fajr, washing your face with cold water, and you pray to God, or you miss it and you feel guilty for being a bad Muslim. I don't miss Ramadan either. Days and days of waking up early, stuffing food and water into a barely functional stomach, and then 15 to 17 hours of fasting. By 8 to 9 p.m., you finally get some morsels of food into your body. And this is repeated day after day while you still have a life to live. And then the fear of hell stops you from not doing it, so you keep doing it despite the misery it causes on you. I now have freedom of thought and belief, freedom from guilt, and freedom to be myself. Thanks for watching. My name is Abdullah Samir, and I make videos on Islam. Subscribe now. Check out my support page below.
Okay, so he ended there. I totally understand the last point, in the sense that if you are considering to convert into Islam or revert to Islam, before being convinced it is the truth, before you are totally convinced that this life is a test, before you are totally convinced that there's a creator that create everything, right? Because that's the starting point. If you already believe that this whole thing is created, there's a creator, and this whole thing is a test, then you already gone past through whatever he mentioned. I understand that many Muslims do not go through that process. Unfortunately, they are just Muslim because Alhamdulillah, Allah, with the qadar of Allah, I was born in a Muslim family. Most of us are Muslim because of that. Hence, we do not go through all of this finding meaning, finding the truth, evaluate everything, and we just follow the motion, right? And hence that's why most of this, when he say you are suffering to wake up early for sahur, etc., it is a suffering. If you are Muslim because of that, you're just following the motion, you don't know why you are doing this. But if you are truly convinced and believe that there's a creator, this life is a test, there's heaven and hell, etc., 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 then this whole thing, it doesn't, if you're a Muslim and you understand what I'm saying, you know what I mean, right? Meaning that it starts from the core, right? Otherwise it will be terrible. It's like I normally give this analogy. If you never intended to be a soldier, but someone throw you into a military camp, and then every day you have to wake up early, for what is the all of the action of the soldier, right? And your life will be miserable, physically and mentally and emotionally. But if you really want to be a soldier, the physical part is challenging, yes, but emotionally, mentally, you are prepared for it. This is what you wish to do because you know the end, you want to serve the country, etc., etc. Similarly, maybe we take an example that is less severe. For example, you want to become a medical doctor. You go through all the process, right? The medical college, whatever, and then HOMO, whatever, right? I'm not sure about the detail, but you get the idea. Now, all those process is a challenging process, but if you really want to be a medical doctor, you know what it is important to go through it. And even though it's painful, it's challenging physically, but mentally and emotionally you are prepared, you want to go through the process. But if you never intend to be a medical doctor, your parent push you there, you never have the intention, you go through the motion, you will be suffering physically, mentally, emotionally. Yes. So again, it's the same with Islam. If you're really convinced that you want the end, so that's why I begin with the end in mind is crucial and very important, then all these challenges is just challenges. It's not something that make you suffer mentally and emotionally, right? Psychologically, right? So that's what I have to say. Yeah, so we have watched this to the end. I don't see anything that is really convincing against Islam in this video. So thank you for watching. See you next time.